I always imagined my wedding day would be perfect. Instead, I'm standing here in my custom-made dress, watching my future mother-in-law steal my thunder with what has to be the most ridiculous pregnancy announcement I've ever heard. My name is Felicity, and this was supposed to be my moment. Sean and I had planned everything down to the last detail. The garden ceremony, the string quartet, even the exact shade of blue for the hydrangeas. But apparently, Cassandra had other plans. I just couldn't keep it in any longer. She practically squealed into the microphone she'd somehow acquired during the father of the bride's speech. "Sean, darling, you're going to be a big brother." The guests collectively gasped. I watched in horror as my perfectly choreographed wedding dissolved into chaos. Sean's face turned an alarming shade of white beside me. "Mom," he stammered, "what are you talking about?" My sister Ruby caught my eye from the bridal party, mouthing, "What the actual fuck?" I couldn't have agreed more. Cassandra was practically glowing with attention as she continued. "Bob and I wanted to wait until after the wedding, but I just couldn't contain my joy any longer." She placed her hand dramatically over her stomach, which I noticed looked suspiciously rounded in her tight-fitting dress. "The thing about Cassandra is that she's always been like this, always needing to be the center of attention. When Sean first introduced me to her 3 years ago, she spent the entire dinner talking about her recent divorce from Sean's father and her new relationship with Bob. During our engagement party, she announced she was writing a tell-all book about her life. But this was a new low. I felt Sean's hand trembling in mine. The poor guy looked like he was about to pass out. Around us, whispers rippled through the crowd. I could see my best friend Paige shaking her head in disbelief. That's when something inside me snapped. 3 years of dealing with Cassandra's drama, and I was done. Without missing a beat, I grabbed the microphone from her manicured hands. "Oh my goodness, Cassandra," I exclaimed, matching her enthusiasm. "What a coincidence. Sean and I were planning to announce after the ceremony that we're expecting two." The room fell silent. Sean's head whipped toward me so fast I thought he might get whiplash. "That's right," I continued, watching Cassandra's face fall. "We're going to be one big happy family, mother and daughter-in-law, pregnant together. Isn't that just magical?" But, Cassandra sputtered, her perfectly lined lips opening and closing like a fish out of water. "You can't be." "Oh, but I am," I said, patting my own stomach. "About 8 weeks along. We wanted to keep it private, but since we're sharing family news," that's when Sean, my wonderful, overwhelmed fiancé, did something I hadn't anticipated. He fainted, just straight up, collapsed next to me, hitting the floor with a thud that echoed through the reception hall. "Sean!" Cassandra shrieked, rushing forward. "Don't worry," I said, kneeling beside him in my wedding dress. "Paige is a nurse." Paige, my best friend, was already there, checking Sean's pulse and putting him in the recovery position. The wedding guests had abandoned their seats and formed a circle around us, phones out, probably already posting on social media. "Give him some space," Ruby commanded, using her teacher voice to shepherd people back. As I knelt there, holding Sean's hand and watching him slowly come around, I caught Cassandra's eye. She was staring at me with a mixture of shock and something else. Calculation, maybe. That's when I knew this was just the beginning. "Felicity," Sean mumbled, as his eyes fluttered open. "Did my mom just say she's pregnant?" "Yes, honey," I replied, stroking his face. "And apparently, so am I." His eyes widened, and for a moment I thought he might faint again. But instead, he just looked at me with complete confusion. "But we haven't." "Shh," I whispered, helping him sit up. "We'll talk later." I could feel Cassandra's eyes boring into my back as the wedding planner, Jonathan, started ushering people toward the reception area, announcing that we'd take a short break before continuing with the ceremony. Ruby appeared at my side, gripping my arm. "Girl, what did you just do?" I watched Cassandra being led away by Bob, her perfect makeup slightly smeared, her moment of triumph thoroughly derailed. "I have no idea," I replied honestly, "but I'm pretty sure I just started a war." Ruby squeezed my arm. "Well, if it's a war she wants, she picked the wrong bride to mess with. Looking at my sister's fierce expression, I couldn't help but smile. This definitely wasn't the wedding day I'd planned, but maybe it was the one I needed. Sometimes you have to fight fire with fire, or in this case, a fake pregnancy with a fake pregnancy. The bridal suite had become a war room. Sean sat on the plush ottoman, holding an ice pack to his head, while I paced back and forth, my wedding dress swishing with each turn. "Let me get this straight," he said, his voice still shaky. "You told everyone you're pregnant to get back at my mother." "No, I told everyone I'm pregnant because your mother chose our wedding day to announce her clearly fabricated pregnancy." I stopped pacing and faced him. "Sean, she's 54. It's not impossible," he mumbled, but I could see doubt creeping into his expression. Ruby burst through the door, followed by Paige. "Coast is clear. Jonathan's keeping the guests entertained with an extended cocktail hour." "How's your head?" Paige asked Sean, switching into nurse mode. "I'm fine," he waved her off. "I'm more concerned about what just happened out there. Felicity, we need to tell everyone the truth." "Like your mother's telling the truth," I shot back. "That's different, is it?" I sat next to him. "Remember last Christmas, when she pretended to have food poisoning because you were spending the holiday with my family? Or when she accidentally scheduled her surgery the same week as our engagement party?" Sean's face darkened. "Those were coincidences." "Oh, honey," Paige interjected. "Those weren't coincidences. That woman has more tricks than a magician's convention." Ruby perched on the armrest beside me. "Speaking of tricks, I just overheard something interesting. Apparently, Cassandra's been visiting some fancy medical spa in the city, the same one that specializes in hormone therapy and, wait for it, cosmetic procedures." "What kind of procedures?" I leaned forward. "The kind that might make someone look—" Ruby gestured vaguely at her midsection. "Expectant." Sean stood up abruptly, dropping the ice pack. "This is crazy. You're all crazy. My mother wouldn't—" A sharp knock interrupted him. Jonathan poked his head in, his usual calm demeanor slightly frazzled. "We have a situation. Cassandra's demanding we continue the ceremony immediately, but she wants to make a few minor adjustments to the seating arrangement and the speeches." "Of course she does," I muttered. "She also mentioned something about wanting to coordinate baby shower dates," Jonathan added with a grimace. I felt a headache coming on. "Tell her we'll be out in 5 minutes." After Jonathan left, Sean turned to me. "We need to fix this. Both of us, you and my mother, need to come clean." "Sean," I took his hands in mine. "I love you, but your mother has been trying to control our relationship from day one. Remember when she showed up unannounced at our apartment at midnight because she had a feeling you were in danger?" "I was sleeping," he admitted. "Exactly. Or when she tried to convince you I was secretly married before because she saw a wedding photo on my Instagram." "That was my cousin's wedding," I added. "I was a bridesmaid." "Okay, maybe she can be a bit intense," Sean conceded. Paige snorted. "Intense? A ghost pepper is intense. Your mother is psychological warfare in designer heels." A commotion outside drew our attention. Through the door, we could hear Cassandra's voice getting louder. "I just need to speak with my son. It's a medical emergency." Ruby rolled her eyes. "Right on cue." I squared my shoulders and smoothed my dress. "Sean, I know this isn't ideal, but trust me, sometimes you have to fight manipulation with manipulation. By pretending to be pregnant. By giving her a taste of her own medicine." I touched his cheek gently. "I'm not doing this to hurt you. I'm doing this to protect us." Before he could respond, the door burst open. Cassandra stood there, one hand on her suddenly very prominent belly, the other clutching her chest. "Sean, darling, I'm feeling faint. The excitement, the baby." I watched my fiancé's face, seeing the familiar worry lines appear, but then something changed. He glanced at me, then back at his mother, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of recognition in his eyes. "Mom," he said firmly, "the ceremony will continue as planned. No changes." Cassandra's mouth fell open. "But—" "No changes," he repeated, standing straighter. And afterward, we're all going to have a long talk about boundaries. I couldn't hide my smile as Cassandra backed out of the room, looking stunned. Sean turned to me, his expression serious but soft. I'm not happy about this pregnancy story, he said quietly, but maybe it's time someone stood up to her. Ruby clapped her hands. Great. Now that that's settled, let's get you two married before anyone else announces they're expecting. I'm looking at you, Paige. Hey. Paige laughed, throwing a tissue box at her. As we prepared to return to the ceremony, I caught my reflection in the mirror. I might have started this game of chicken with Cassandra, but something told me she wasn't going to back down easily. This wedding was just the beginning. The morning after our wedding, I found myself sitting in Paige's kitchen, surrounded by newspaper clippings and old photos she'd somehow managed to dig up overnight. My coffee had gone cold, forgotten in the midst of our impromptu investigation into the Wilson family history. Look at this, Paige said, sliding a yellowed newspaper article across the table. 15 years ago, Cassandra made headlines for disrupting her sister-in-law's charity gala with a dramatic health scare. Let me guess, it turned out to be nothing. Bingo. But by then, all attention had shifted from the charity to her brave recovery. Ruby walked in, balancing 3 fresh cups of coffee. You won't believe what I just found out from Jonathan. Apparently, Cassandra's been calling all the local baby boutiques, setting up private shopping appointments. She's really committing to this charade, I muttered, reaching for my phone as it buzzed with another message from Sean. He'd gone to have breakfast with his mother, trying to smooth things over. There's more, Ruby continued, pulling up a chair. I got curious and called Dad's old law firm. Guess who handled Cassandra's divorce from Sean's father? Who? Aunt Laurel. I nearly spilled my coffee. Our Aunt Laurel. The one who refuses to even talk about the Wilsons. The very same. Ruby leaned forward. And get this. She's willing to talk now. Before I could respond, my phone lit up with a text from Sean. We need to talk. Coming over. 20 minutes later, Sean burst through Paige's front door, looking like he'd aged 10 years over breakfast. She's planning a joint baby shower, he announced, collapsing onto the couch. For next month, she's already booked the country club. Next month? I exchanged alarmed looks with Ruby. That's ambitious. She says she wants to do it before either of us starts showing too much. He ran his hands through his hair. Felicity, this is getting out of hand. Getting, Paige snorted. It got out of hand the moment she hijacked your wedding with her geriatric pregnancy announcement. Has anyone actually seen her medical records? Ruby asked. Or her doctor? Sean shifted uncomfortably. She says Dr. Harrison is handling everything. Dr. Harrison? Paige's eyebrows shot up. The plastic surgeon. A heavy knock at the door made us all jump. Jonathan stood there, looking uncharacteristically nervous. Sorry to interrupt, but you need to see this. He held up his tablet, showing a social media post. Cassandra just announced she's having twins. Twins, we all shouted in unison. It gets better, Jonathan scrolled down. She's tagged Sean's father in the post. Sean bolted upright. My dad. But they haven't spoken in years. I grabbed the tablet, reading the post aloud. Overjoyed to announce we're expecting twins. Can't wait to share this blessing with all family members, even those who've been distant. Time to come home, Brian. She's trying to force your father back into the picture, I realized. This isn't just about upstaging our wedding anymore. Sean's phone started ringing, his father's name flashing on the screen. He stared at it like it might explode. Answer it, I urged. Maybe he knows something we don't. Sean stepped into the other room, and we all tried and failed not to eavesdrop on his side of the conversation. Dad, yeah, I saw the post. No, I had no idea she was going to. Wait, what do you mean you have proof? When he returned, his face was ashen. My dad's coming to town. Says he has something we need to see about Mom's pattern of behavior. Pattern? Ruby perked up. Apparently, this isn't the first time she's pulled something like this. Dad mentioned something about documents from their divorce. A letter slid under Paige's door, making us all start. Jonathan retrieved it. A cream-colored envelope addressed to me in elegant handwriting. "It's from Aunt Laurel," I said, opening it. My eyes widened as I read. "Holy shit! What?" everyone demanded. Aunt Laurel didn't just handle the divorce. She has proof that Cassandra faked a pregnancy back then, too, to try to stop Brian from leaving. Sean sank back into the couch. "That's impossible. I would have known." "Would you?" I asked gently. "You were 16, and according to this, she conveniently lost the baby right after your father agreed to a better divorce settlement." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Finally, Ruby spoke up. "So what's the plan?" I looked at Sean, seeing the hurt and confusion in his eyes, but also a growing resolve. "First," I said, "we meet with your father and Aunt Laurel. Then," I picked up the tablet with Cassandra's twins' announcement, "we give your mother exactly what she wants. Attention, just not the kind she's expecting." "The baby shower," Paige grinned wickedly. "The baby shower," I confirmed. "If Cassandra wants to play pregnant, let's see how she handles a spotlight she can't control." "You need to tell me the truth right now," Sean demanded, pacing our living room. "Are you really pregnant?" I set down my tea and met his gaze. "No, I'm not." The silence that followed felt heavier than my fake pregnancy belly padding Cassandra had helpfully sent over that morning. "I can't believe you lied to me, to everyone," his voice cracked, "in front of our entire family. Your mother backed me into a corner." I stood up. "What was I supposed to do? Let her hijack our wedding with her obvious lie? So you countered with another lie." He ran his hands through his hair. "That makes you just as bad as—" The doorbell interrupted our argument. Through the peephole, I saw Cassandra, wearing a fitted dress that emphasized her mysteriously growing bump. "Perfect timing," I muttered, opening the door. "Darling," Cassandra breezed in, air kissing my cheeks. "I brought you some pregnancy-safe tea and the most darling little onesies." She paused, taking in the tension. "Oh dear, is everything all right?" Morning sickness can be so difficult in these early stages. "Mom, what are you doing here?" Sean asked wearily. "Can't a mother check on her pregnant son and daughter-in-law?" She settled onto our couch, arranging her dress to highlight her belly. "Especially when we're all in this together." The doorbell rang again. This time, it was Ruby, followed closely by Paige. "Oh good. The gang's all here." Cassandra smiled tightly. "I was just telling Sean and Felicity about the wonderful prenatal yoga instructor I've found. She specializes in geriatric pregnancies." "Geriatric?" Paige raised an eyebrow. "Isn't that for pregnancies over 35? "Well, yes." Cassandra waved dismissively. "But she's very experienced with unique situations." "Speaking of unique situations," Ruby interjected, "we ran into the most interesting person at the coffee shop this morning. Brian." The color drained from Cassandra's face. "Brian, my Brian." "Your ex-husband Brian," I corrected. "Sean's father, Brian. The one you tagged in your twins' announcement." "He's here?" Cassandra's hand fluttered to her throat. "Right here," came a deep voice from the doorway. Brian stood there, looking exactly like an older version of Sean, holding a manila envelope. "What's in the envelope, Dad?" Sean asked quietly. "Evidence," Brian replied, stepping into the room. "Medical records, legal documents, and some very interesting correspondence from 1998. Cassandra jumped up with surprising agility for someone supposedly carrying twins. "Those are private." "We're private," Brian corrected. "Until you dragged me into your latest performance by tagging me in that ridiculous post." "How dare you?" Cassandra's voice rose. "I'm carrying precious new life." "Like you were carrying precious new life when you tried to stop our divorce?" Brian cut in. "Those records show you were never pregnant then, Cassandra, just like you're not pregnant now." The room fell silent. Sean looked between his parents, his face a mask of confusion and dawning realization. "Mom," his voice sounded small, like a child's. "Is this true?" "Of course not," Cassandra protested. Your father is just jealous that I've found happiness with Bob. Bob left town 3 days ago, Paige interrupted. I saw him at the airport. He seemed pretty surprised to hear about your pregnancy announcement. Cassandra's face contorted. She spun to face me. This is your doing. You've turned everyone against me. You and your perfect little wedding, and your perfect little pregnancy. I'm not pregnant, I said clearly. I lied because you lied first. Ha! Cassandra pointed triumphantly. See, she admits she's a liar. Yes, I agreed calmly. I told one lie, at our wedding. To counter your lie, but you've been lying for decades, haven't you? Brian opened the envelope, spreading documents across the coffee table. Medical records, legal papers, old photographs, a paper trail of deception spanning years. It's over, Cassandra, Brian said quietly. Stop before you hurt Sean any more than you already have. Sean picked up one of the documents, his hands shaking. You faked a miscarriage to get a better divorce settlement? Sweetheart, I can explain. No. Sean cut her off. No more explanations, no more lies. He turned to me. I'm sorry I got angry about your lie. I understand now why you did it. Cassandra looked around the room, her carefully constructed facade crumbling. This isn't fair. I'm your mother. Yes, you are, Sean said. But that doesn't give you the right to manipulate everyone around you. I think you should leave, I suggested firmly. Cassandra gathered her designer purse, her movements jerky and uncertain. At the door, she turned back. This isn't over. Actually, Brian held up the envelope. It is, unless you want these documents to become very public. After she left, Sean collapsed onto the couch, staring at the evidence of his mother's decades of deception. What do we do now? He asked. Ruby picked up one of the onesies Cassandra had brought. Well, first we return these, then we start planning that baby shower. After all, she did book the country club. You can't be serious, Sean started, then saw our expressions. Oh God, you are serious. Dead serious, I confirmed. Your mother wants attention. Let's give her exactly what she deserves. The country club's private dining room buzzed with activity as Brian shared more details about Cassandra's past schemes. We sat around a large table, empty coffee cups scattered between stacks of old photos and documents. She once convinced my entire board of directors that she had a rare tropical disease, Brian explained, sliding another photo across the table, just to stop me from accepting a job in Seattle. That's her in the hospital bed? Ruby squinted at the image, with what looks like grocery store makeup to appear sickly. Bingo, Brian nodded. Cost me the job of a lifetime. Sean picked up another document, and this one, from my high school graduation. Ah, the mysterious fainting spell that prevented you from going on that summer trip with your friends. Brian's expression darkened. The one where you were planning to visit colleges without her input. Jesus, Sean muttered. How did I never see it? Jonathan, who'd been quietly taking notes, looked up from his tablet. Because she's good at what she does. Speaking of which, she's just posted another pregnancy update on social media. We all crowded around to look. There was Cassandra, posed in what appeared to be a professional photo shoot, cradling her bump in a flowing maternal dress. Blessed with twins at 54, Paige read aloud, rolling her eyes. Age is just a number when miracles happen. Give me a break. Wait, I pointed at the screen. Look at the location tag. Dr. Harrison's Medical Spa, Ruby read. Isn't that the place that specializes in cosmetic procedures? Sean finished, including prosthetic pregnancy bellies for actresses and models. The door swung open, and Aunt Laurel strode in, carrying a thick folder. Sorry I'm late, had to dig these out of storage. She dropped the folder on the table. Everything from Cassandra's divorce proceedings, including some very interesting medical testimonies. Laurel, Brian stood, extending his hand. It's been a while. 20 years, give or take a few lies, she replied dryly, shaking his hand. Now shall we plan this baby shower? About that, Jonathan pulled up his event planning software. Cassandra's already sent out invitations to half the town. local press included. Perfect, I smiled. The bigger the audience, the better. Felicity, Sean touched my arm. Are you sure about this? She's still my mother. Which is exactly why we need to do this, I said gently. She needs help, Sean. Real help. Not enablers. I agree, Brian added. I enabled her behavior for years, and look where it got us. Paige's phone buzzed. Guys, you need to see this. Bob just posted something interesting. We huddled around her phone. There was Bob, clearly on a beach somewhere, with his arm around a young woman. New beginnings in Bali with my soulmate, Ruby read. Sorry, Cassandra, but I can't be part of your games anymore. P.S. We both know you're not pregnant. Well, that's going to complicate her story, Jonathan mused. Save that post, I instructed. We'll need it for the shower. Speaking of the shower, Laurel opened her folder. I have some ideas for the guest list, starting with every person she's ever manipulated. That could be a long list, Brian warned. Exactly, Laurel smiled wickedly. And I've kept in touch with most of them. Sean's phone lit up with a text. Mom wants to meet for dinner tonight, says she needs to discuss the shower details. Perfect, I said. Tell her yes, but we'll make it a group dinner. And I'll make sure to book a table near the windows, Jonathan added. Better lighting for when everything comes to light. You're all enjoying this a bit too much, Sean observed. But I could see the ghost of a smile playing at his lips. Maybe, Ruby admitted. But your mother's been scripting everyone's lives for decades. Time for her to face the critics. There's one more thing, Brian said, pulling out a final document. The medical records from her first fake pregnancy, the one she used to trap me into marriage. Sean's head snapped up. What? That's right, Brian confirmed. Our entire marriage was based on a lie. One that took me years to uncover. The room fell silent as the weight of this revelation sank in. The shower's in 3 days, Jonathan reminded us. Whatever we're going to do, we need to do it fast. I looked around the table at our unlikely alliance. My family, Sean's father, our friends, all united in exposing a lifetime of manipulation. 3 days is plenty, I said, picking up one of Cassandra's ultrasound photos, clearly photoshopped. After all, she's given us more than enough material for one hell of a baby shower presentation. To the mother of all revelations, Ruby raised her coffee cup in a mock toast. As everyone laughed, I caught Sean's eye. He nodded slightly, finally fully on board. Cassandra had no idea what was coming, but she was about to learn that karma, like her fake pregnancy, had perfect timing. The restaurant's private dining room crackled with tension as Cassandra swept in, 45 minutes late, sporting an even larger baby bump than she'd had 2 days ago. Traffic was absolutely dreadful, she announced, then froze at the sight of our full table. I wasn't expecting a crowd. Sit down, Mom, Sean said firmly. We need to talk. About the shower, she perched delicately on the only available chair, directly across from Brian. I've already handled everything. The caterer, the decorations, the press. The press, I interrupted. For a baby shower. Well, naturally. It's not every day a mother and daughter-in-law experience pregnancy together. She beamed at me. Speaking of which, darling, you're barely showing. Are you eating enough? Cut the act, Cassandra. Brian's voice was quiet but firm. We know about Dr. Harrison. Her smile flickered. My obstetrician? What about him? Funny, Ruby chimed in, sliding her phone across the table. Because according to his website, Dr. Harrison specializes in cosmetic surgery and prosthetic pregnancy suits for the entertainment industry. I don't know what you're implying. Bob called me, Sean cut in, right before he posted about his new life in Bali. Cassandra's hand flew to her throat. He what? Told us everything, I added. About how you planned this whole thing when you found out he was leaving you for someone else. That's ridiculous. She grabbed her water glass with trembling hands. I'm carrying twins. Like you were carrying my sibling during the divorce? Sean asked. Or should I say, pretending to carry? The color drained from Cassandra's face. Who told you about that? I did, Brian said, opening his folder, along with evidence of every other lie you've told over the years. Those records are private. She tried to snatch the folder, but Brian pulled it back. Not anymore. Not since you decided to tag me in your latest performance. Jonathan cleared his throat. The guest list for the shower has grown quite interesting. We've heard back from almost everyone, including your sister-in-law, whose charity event you ruined in 2008, and your former best friend, whose wedding you interrupted with your terminal illness diagnosis. Paige added. That was different. Cassandra's voice rose. I was going through a difficult time. You're always going through a difficult time, Sean said wearily. Always at exactly the moment when someone else is happy. How dare you? She stood up, her prosthetic bump shifting noticeably. I'm your mother. Yes, you are, Sean replied, which is why we're giving you a choice. I pulled out an envelope and slid it across the table. Inside is the name and number of Dr. Peters. She's an excellent therapist who specializes in personality disorders. You think I need therapy? Cassandra laughed shrilly. Option 2, Brian continued, is we go ahead with the shower as planned, with a few minor adjustments to the program. What adjustments? Her eyes narrowed. A comprehensive presentation, Ruby explained cheerfully, featuring 20 years of your greatest hits, photos, documents, medical records, even that video of you practicing your feint at the charity gala. You wouldn't dare. Try us, I challenged. You've spent years manipulating everyone around you. It stops now. Cassandra's eyes darted around the table, looking for an ally and finding none. Her hand unconsciously went to her fake bump, which had shifted noticeably to the left. Sean, she pleaded, you can't let them do this to your own mother. I'm doing this because you're my mother, he replied. Get help, Mom. Real help. The waiter chose that moment to appear with menus. Cassandra grabbed her purse, standing so abruptly, her chair toppled backward. This isn't over, she hissed. Actually, Aunt Laurel spoke for the first time. It is. The shower's in 2 days. You have until tomorrow at noon to call Dr. Peters, or we proceed as planned. With press coverage, Jonathan added helpfully. As requested. We watched as Cassandra stormed out, her exit somewhat undermined by her crooked prosthetic bump. Well, Paige broke the silence. That went about as well as expected. You think she'll call the therapist? Ruby asked. No, Sean and Brian answered simultaneously. Then we proceed with Plan B. I picked up my menu. But first, I'm starving. Anyone else want to split the calamari? As we ordered dinner, I noticed Sean looking at his phone. Everything okay? He showed me the screen. A text from Cassandra. You'll regret this, all of you. Sounds like a threat. Ruby peered over my shoulder. Sounds like someone who's cornered, Brian corrected. And that's when Cassandra is most dangerous. Let her try something, I said, squeezing Sean's hand. We have truth on our side. Plus video evidence, Jonathan added, waving his tablet. Lots and lots of video evidence. As our appetizers arrived, I couldn't shake the feeling that Cassandra wasn't done yet. But this time, we were ready for whatever performance she had planned. The country club ballroom buzzed with anticipation. Cassandra had outdone herself with the decorations. Twin-themed everything, from the matching blue and pink balloon arches to the 2 times the blessing banner stretched across the stage. She didn't call Dr. Peters, Sean confirmed, checking his phone one last time. Of course she didn't. Ruby adjusted the projector screen. That would require admitting she needs help. Guests began filtering in, many of them familiar faces from Cassandra's past. Her former best friend Margaret, who'd lost her husband to cancer while Cassandra faked her own terminal diagnosis. Sarah, the sister-in-law, whose charity event she'd hijacked. Even Bob's ex-wife, looking particularly pleased to be there. The press is here, Jonathan whispered, nodding toward a cluster of local reporters. And you won't believe who Cassandra invited as her personal photographer. Who? My cousin Tony, the same one who caught her practicing fake fainting spells on video. I couldn't help but smile. Perfect. The room fell silent as Cassandra made her grand entrance. She'd somehow acquired an even larger prosthetic bump, wrapped in a designer maternity dress that probably cost more than my car. "Welcome, everyone," she beamed, one hand placed dramatically on her stomach. "I'm so blessed to share this magical day with—" "Sorry I'm late," Aunt Laurel's voice cut through the room. She strode in, followed by a distinguished-looking woman in a lab coat. "Dr. Harrison was kind enough to join us." Cassandra's face went pale. "Dr. Harrison?" "Yes, though I'm a bit confused," the doctor said loudly. "You've been telling people I'm your obstetrician, but I'm actually a cosmetic surgeon, one who specializes in prosthetic pregnancy suits for film and television." The room erupted in whispers. Cassandra's hand clutched her fake bump. I don't know what you're talking about. My real doctor is non-existent." Brian stepped forward. "Just like your pregnancy. How dare you?" Cassandra's voice rose. "I'm carrying twins." "No, you're carrying silicone," Dr. Harrison corrected. "In fact, that's my company's latest model, though you seem to have adjusted it incorrectly. It's sliding to the left." Camera flashes went off as Cassandra frantically tried to adjust her slipping prosthetic. "Jonathan," I nodded. "Start the presentation." The lights dimmed, and the projector flickered to life. On screen appeared the title, "A History of Deception, The Cassandra Chronicles." "Stop this immediately," Cassandra shrieked, but her voice was drowned out by gasps as the first video played. Her practicing fainting spells before the charity gala. "And here," Ruby narrated, "we have medical records from 1998 showing no pregnancy during her divorce proceedings, despite her claims. That's private medical information." Cassandra lunged for the podium, but Sean blocked her path. "Like the private medical information you've been spreading about your fake pregnancy?" he asked quietly. The presentation continued, each slide revealing another layer of manipulation. Photos of her miraculous recovery from her fake terminal illness, documents proving she'd lied about various medical conditions to manipulate events, Bob's social media post from Bali declaring her current pregnancy a fraud. "You're all just jealous." Cassandra's voice cracked. "Jealous of my happiness, my miracle pregnancy." Her dramatic gesture caused the prosthetic bump to shift completely sideways. In her panic to adjust it, the entire thing slipped out from under her dress, falling to the floor with a soft thud. The room went silent. Then Margaret started laughing. Soon others joined in, years of pent-up frustration releasing in waves of cathartic laughter. "This is assault," Cassandra screamed, backing toward the door. "I'll sue all of you." "For what?" Aunt Laurel stepped forward. "Exposing the truth. Please, do sue us. I'd love to present all this evidence in court." "Sean," Cassandra pleaded, "tell them to stop. I'm your mother." "Yes, you are." Sean's voice was gentle but firm. "Which is why we did this. You need help, Mom. Real help." "I don't need anything except loyal family," she pointed at me. "This is all your fault. You turned my son against me." "No, Mom." Sean took my hand. "Your lies turned everyone against you." Dr. Peters emerged from the crowd. "My offer still stands, Cassandra. We can start sessions whenever you're ready." Cassandra looked around the room, at the reporters taking notes, at her former victims finally seeing justice, at her own prosthetic belly lying sadly on the floor. "This isn't over," she whispered, but her voice lacked its usual conviction. "Actually, I picked up the fake bump and held it out to her. It is. The question is, do you want to end it with dignity and get help? Or should we continue sharing your greatest hits?" For a moment, I thought I saw something real in her eyes. Fear, maybe, or recognition. But then she turned and fled, leaving her fake pregnancy behind, along with the last shreds of her credibility. "Well," Ruby broke the silence, "I guess this means we can serve the cake now." The tension broke as people laughed, the party transforming from a fake baby shower into something like a celebration of truth. "Think she'll actually get help this time?" Sean asked quietly. I don't know, I admitted, but at least she can't hurt anyone else with her lies anymore. The sunset painted the beach in soft oranges and pinks as Sean and I finally had the wedding reception we deserved. No drama, no fake pregnancies, just us and our real family celebrating under the stars. I still can't believe you pulled this off, Sean said, pulling me closer as we swayed to the music. A complete do-over, thank Jonathan. I nodded toward our wedding planner, who was busy arranging floating lanterns along the shoreline. He insisted we deserved a drama-free celebration. Ruby appeared with 2 champagne glasses. Speaking of drama, guess who just checked into Silver Pines Rehabilitation Center? Mom actually did it? Sean stopped dancing. According to Brian, she had a breakdown after the shower, finally admitted she needs help. Ruby handed us the glasses. Dr. Peters is handling her treatment personally. Paige joined us, kicking off her sandals. Don't forget the best part. She's agreed to make public apologies to everyone she manipulated. Starting with you two, Brian added, approaching with Aunt Laurel, though she'll have to wait until she's completed her first month of therapy. To new beginnings, Aunt Laurel raised her glass, and to karma finally catching up, and to no more fake pregnancies, Ruby added with a wink. The fairy lights strung across the beach pavilion twinkled as night fell. Our guests gathered around tables laden with food, sharing stories and laughter, real laughter, not the nervous kind that had filled our first reception. May I have everyone's attention? Jonathan tapped his glass. It's time for the father of the groom's speech. Brian stood, looking more relaxed than I'd ever seen him. When Sean first told me he was getting married, I worried. Not about Felicity, she's perfect for him. I worried that history would repeat itself, that manipulation and lies would poison another generation. He paused, looking at Sean. But then I watched my son do something I never had the courage to do, stand up to the manipulation. And I watched my daughter-in-law do something even braver. She fought back with truth. Here's to fighting back, Margaret called from her table, raising her glass. To truth, several voices echoed. But most importantly, Brian continued, here's to breaking cycles, to recognizing toxic patterns, and having the courage to end them. Sean, Felicity, you've shown us all what real love looks like. It looks like honesty, even when it's hard. It looks like standing together, even when it means standing up to family. I squeezed Sean's hand as Brian finished. To the happy couple, may your life together be filled with real joy, real love, and absolutely no fake medical conditions. The crowd laughed and cheered. As the music resumed, Sean pulled me aside, near the water's edge. I got something in the mail today, he said, pulling out an envelope. From Mom. Do you want to read it? He nodded, unfolding the letter. Dear Sean and Felicity, I'm learning that sorry isn't enough. Actions matter more than words. I'm doing the work now, really doing it. Dr. Peters is helping me understand why I needed attention so desperately that I hurt the people I love. I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope someday to earn back your trust. With real love, Mom. That actually sounds genuine, I said, surprised. Dr. Peters added a note confirming Mom wrote this herself. No manipulation tactics. Sean folded the letter carefully. It's a start. Ruby's voice carried across the beach. Time for the lantern release. We joined our guests by the water's edge, each holding a paper lantern. Jonathan had arranged them in a heart shape, a much better surprise than any fake pregnancy announcement. Make a wish, Sean whispered as we lit our lantern together. I wish. Don't say it out loud, Ruby interrupted. Bad luck. As our lantern joined the others floating up into the night sky, I looked around at our real family. Ruby and Paige arguing about proper wish-making protocol. Brian and Aunt Laurel sharing knowing smiles. Jonathan directing the photographer to capture the perfect shot. You know what? Sean said softly. I think we're going to be okay. Better than okay, I corrected. We're going to be real. No more fake anything. Although, he grinned, you did make a pretty convincing pregnant woman. Don't even joke about that, Ruby called out, or I'm telling everyone about the time you fainted at the wedding. As laughter erupted around us, I watched the lanterns drift higher, their light merging with the stars. Sometimes the best endings aren't about perfect closure, they're about honest new beginnings. Ready to start our real life together? Sean asked. I kissed him under the starlit sky, surrounded by truth and genuine love. I thought you'd never ask.